It's tour. Tour is crazy. Things happen all the time. We're going to get some curveballs, so we're going to try our best to not make it weird. But I've got Chris Pollock here.
Pollock.
Gosh, I practiced that too. Chris Pollock here. Chris Pollock is awesome, and Chris Pollock runs down for
August Burns Red.
August Burns Red. There's a bunch of Allen and Heath here, and you have an Allen and Heath here.
Correct.
And you've got a 1500.
We do.
Here.
Yep.
Why the 1500? We've got a, what is that, 3500 over there?
Sure,
and
yeah.
We've got a, you could have done SQ.
Yeah, I mean,
well.
yeah, the main thing that made me want to go to the C15 was the fact that I got the full D-Live infrastructure in such a small footprint.
Yeah.
And since the band wanted to have a system that they owned, that we could use for monitors, that we could use for front of house, it just had all the capabilities to get me where I wanted to go, but also get them where they wanted to go. And so we're kind of able to meet in the middle, and D-Live was like kind of like the perfect solution to be able to fly it, to be able to do whatever we want and not have to worry about hiring locally or anything like that. It just kind of ticks all the boxes for a band at this size doing clubs and theaters and touring around the world.
And your band owns this equipment, correct?
They do. They own the entire audio package, the whole thing.
You have to be really smart with what you buy. You can't just go to a production company and say, I want to rent this.
100%.
Okay, I want to change it. Oh, okay, I want to change
Exactly, yeah. So it's like once we commit to something, like that's what we have. Like I was telling you earlier with the, we got 10-year-old Sennheiser, G3 for the ears and stuff like that. When they commit to something, that's what they're sticking with until, until it's really time to upgrade. So, when they made the decision to invest in this, and that's how they look at it, as an investment, and so, yeah, we got to be very sure that that's what we want to spend.
I do love the size of it. Can we peek underneath it real quick?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I want you guys to see the size of this. It is a D-Live, but it's just with one screen. So another thing I notice here is that you have no screens. Other screens, meaning I don't see waves here.
Yeah,
I don't see UA. Are you doing all native, or is there?
Yeah, it's all native. So I'm doing the whole show on the processing in the console, using a bunch of the different deep processors and the NEQ on the outputs.
Okay.
And yeah, I do everything on board. Again, and that's sort of just like to keep it concise, to keep it clean, and so that no matter where we are, I have the show, because I don't have the option to go, oh hey, I need to spec this SSL Fusion. Oh hey, I need to spec this Wave server. Oh hey, I need to, it's like we travel with the whole system. Even if we're going to Australia or Hawaii or South America or wherever, the whole system travels with the band all over the world. So we just wanted to have it like ready to go, no matter what. And to be honest, like I'm very happy, especially since 1.9 with the glue compressor and the NEQ and stuff like that. That kind of like took it over the top for me, where I'm like not really looking for a whole lot more out of the desk. And yeah, all the routing capabilities and stuff, as far as like matrix inputs to matrices and matrices back to inputs and all kinds of stuff. I could kind of do any kind of more advanced routing I want, and pick up extra stages of compression and stuff if I want. So it just doesn't really feel necessary to me to have a bunch of extra stuff that I have to worry about teching, I have to worry about advancing or whatever. It just, boom, right here. Here's the whole show.
One thing that maybe some of you guys may know about, but not know about, I want to mention is the Deep.
Sure.
Deep. Explain what Deep is to people.
I mean,
package for this.
Sure. I mean, without having like some
going
official.
Too deep.
Yeah. I mean, when I say Deep, I really just mean like basically all the classic compressor emulators, and then like the tube saturation at the top of the preamp.
Do you use a Dyne 8 at all for it?
I use a ton of Dyne 8. Okay. Yeah.
That's actually, I'm sorry, that's really more what I wanted to mention was the Dyne 8 stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the Dyne 8 has a. You can explain what it is.
Sure. Well, I mean,
what is Dyne 8?
Yeah, I mean, Dyne 8 is basically a 4-band multi-band compressor and a 4-band dynamic EQ that's insertable on any input or output. And there's 64 instances of Dyne 8. And that's actually one of the selling points for D-Live for me, because I use a lot of multi-band compression with August Burns Red, just because it's such dynamic, extreme music, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to take something that can kind of
extreme, like that hard rock.
Yeah, it's definitely hard rock for sure.
Stuff that those people, crazy kids, listen to.
Yeah. But yeah, and so it's great because on any, I can just pop it a Dyne 8 anywhere on any input or output, and it doesn't burn like an effects slot or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, it's super integral to my D-Live workflow.
How many inputs are you using Dynate on?
How many inputs am I using Dynate on?
Well, first up, I'm sorry, let me back up. How many inputs are you running?
I think August Burns Red is about 35 inputs, somewhere in there. It's not that many inputs.
Like 2 drum sets?
I mean, yeah, it's like 12 inputs of drums.
Okay.
And then, yeah, like bass, probably 4, 6 guitar inputs, so 3 stereo guitars, a couple vocals, and some playback. So something around there. We add in some track stuff. Like I added an acoustic guitar on this tour, so somewhere around the low to mid 30s.
So how many of those have Dynate on it?
I'd say probably like a third of them. All the vocals, the guitars I do use Dynate on, but are usually only one band.
Oh, cool.
On the low end to kind of like tighten up the, just like the chugging on the thumpy chugging on the guitars. But I use a lot on the vocals. I use it on a lot of my outputs, just to squeeze it. Again, I like a lot on low end. I use it on kick. I use it on the bass. A lot of Dynate on the bass. Like probably the most aggressive Dynate use is on the vocals and the bass. But yeah.
Okay, are you doing any special secret sauce, parallel compression type stuff? Are you?
Yeah, I mean,
I want to see up your sleeve, maybe just a little.
Sure. I mean, I think one of my another favorite feature of mine is the dry wet on all of the processors. So a lot of my processing is done in parallel that way. I'll just use the dry wet on the processor itself. Like I don't actually add another bus. But like on, let's say on like my snare group, I'll have an 1176 and I'll have a blend going of that processor just on dry wet without having to burn another bus. I do the same thing with the Transient Designer, which is one of the processors in the effects rack. I'll get that like knocking pretty hard and then go 100% wet or 100% dry, and then just kind of sneak the Transient Designer in for like extra punch. But it's really nice because I don't have to, especially since we're using the console for monitors as well. Even though there are 64 buses, I am kind of limited on, like I don't want to burn buses just to burn buses.
What's on your master bus? Do you got anything fancy on like a G bus?
Yeah, I mean the only thing I have on the master bus is the bus glue comp. And maybe a little bit. Like I was saying, I have a little bit of low end compression with the Dynate, but that's it. But I mean, honestly, the bus glue comp is great. It adds a lot of that GUI VCA thing that I feel like, honestly, without this, I would probably want to reach for a plugin or like a piece of hardware. And then this processor in particular, kind of like took the D-Live kind of over the top for me as far as being like, well, I kind of have all the flavors that I want.
So you did mention something about your running monitors from here, which is in this type of room. That's not, most people don't do that. You're like, but that's super cool that you're doing that. It's super cool that there's no engine over here either. It is a very easy setup and teardown. So you're wearing a lot of hats on this.
I am, yeah.
How much say did you have in with picking this package? Is it something that you walked into? Did you help the band purchase this?
Yes.
And was that your mindset with all this? It's like, hey, I don't want to run monitors, but I did see you guys had some of your techs up there actually had an iPad with it.
So when I started working for this band, they were carrying a small Behringer X32 like rack monitoring system with a little split, and then just using like console de jour. And I did that for a little bit, and then kind of started like being like, hey, if we want to elevate the audio just in general, like we should really look into renting a console. And then that was the end of 2017, early 2018, not long after D-Live, it just kind of started to even be like in my awareness at least. And so we took I got them to take a D-Live out. We rented it from Claire for one tour, and on that tour, we kind of crunched the numbers, and I was like, listen, for what you're gonna rent one for the next year, you can just buy the whole thing. And so they were they're very like bottom line oriented. And it's, like I was telling you earlier, it's kind of like a very small business like kind of mindset. And so they just decided to buy it. But And like I said before, the whole thing is like meant to be as efficient as possible because it's just me. Yeah, so I just want to, I want to have as few moving parts as possible, so there's like less places for things to fail.
Yeah.
So that's why we do it with just one engine on stage, and I have all the control of everything from here if I need to. But yeah, then we're using Mixpad with an access point for the backline guys, just in case they need to push stuff around. I have the whole show double patched. So I have a separate set of monitor inputs for everything. So just like they can kind of do their thing and I can do my thing, but if I need to, I can, jump on the monitor. So
absolutely.
Necessary.
Can we see monitor world?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Look at this. Is this not yours?
Not mine.
Not yours.
No, this is not mine. That's it. Yeah. There is no surface on this end. They've turned the iPad off, but I can get it. There's Joe. But yeah, so I mean, the entire system on this end is literally just the DM32 and the iPad app. The whole thing again is the whole rig, not just the Alan Heath aspect of it, but the whole thing in general is just made to be as easy and simple as possible because so I mean, this whole thing is literally the entire audio world and the entire stage left guitar world, the playback system, our MIDI switching system. It's all just in these two racks. The wireless access point, 2 Mac Minis for playback. The whole thing is here. 7. There's actually one more G3 on the other side, but so 7 stereo mixes for the band and crew, and it's all right here in these 2 racks.
So this is what's over here.
So this is our stage left. This is mostly guitar stuff. So there's the 2 main and backup XFX3s for JB. His wirelesses, an antenna splitter for those wirelesses. We do have a single channel of Sure You Look Stage. Yeah, we tried to. I tried to get Jake to switch to a wireless, and he wasn't about it. But on certain tours, we use it as like a guest vocal and stuff like that. So we do have that, but we don't use it too much. We got the 2 Mios for the MIDI. All of the guitar, all of the guitars are MIDI automated. So like those guys aren't pushing any pedals. All of the patch, all their patch changes are all come off of the playback computer. So they can kind of be wherever they want to be on stage and they don't have to worry about stepping on any pedals, even down to like tuner automation and stuff like that. That's all part of the system.
Now is that keyed by time code? What is that?
It's MIDI, yeah. So it's literally.
So who fires it?
Well, so the whole show it runs on Rails. So there's basically before the tour starts, they map out the entire show, like with which songs and how much time there is between songs, and then kind of create like a master session, and then they go through and they just drop all the changes in time, and then it just spits MIDI out of the it's USB into these iConnectivity Mios, and then the Mios have DIN outputs that go to the XFXs and to all the Kempers on stage right, which are just a different modeling amp. And so it just spits that MIDI out and does all the changes for them. We do have time code like normal LTC that's going to lighting in front of house. But the MIDI for the guitars and the time code are kind of discrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talkback?
Yeah.
To Tech you talk, or to band members?
Yeah, this is mostly for the techs to communicate with each other because there's a guitar tech on stage right. Spencer, our drum tech stage manager, hangs over here and runs playback, which is basically just pushing spacebar at the top of the show and then stopping it, pushing spacebar for the encore. And that's basically that. But he also has like text the lights too. So he's in communication with the LD at front of house as well. So the 3 of them are chatting a lot. But yeah, so Afton at front of house, Spencer, Nate on stage right, they all have talks.
So who controls the mix pad, or who controls ears? If something goes wrong, how do they talk to?
So typically, the band will come to Spencer. There's another talk on stage that they can get a hold of him if they need to, or they'll just some of the guys just are in the habit of just running over and and shouting at him. But typically, because of the nature of the music and the setup, there aren't a lot of big issues, especially on when we're headlining and we have sound checks. If there's just like, balance issues with back pressure and stuff, they'll work that out in the afternoon. If something goes super wrong, we figure it out on the fly. But generally, there's not a lot of like active mixing because everything is DI. All the guitar, it's a guitar rock band. All the guitars are all DI, so those just sound the same every day. We get a trigger on the kick drum. We're pretty consistent with all the drum stuff. So like, there's just not a lot that's changing on a day-to-day basis. So, and to be fair, the mixes are pretty utilitarian. They've never actually had a monitor engineer. So the inputs sound good, but the band is used to a utility monitor mix. There's a lot of click track, a lot of each guy's own instrument.
Okay.
And they're just focused on playing. And not super stressed about like a really, like musical monitor mix. But it allows them to, to save on that expense of having a monitor engineer and having to have a bunk spot and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, they are a small business, and so they're trying to, eke out their living, here in the clubs. So, it makes sense. Even it makes more work for me sometimes.
Talk to me about microphones. What you using?
Sure. I'm on a big SE kick right now.
Okay.
I got V7s on all the vocals.
Okay.
I'm doing VR1s on overheads. V7X on snare
So
top.
go look at it, but I don't think we have any room to go look at it at all.
Yeah, it's all covered up right now, unfortunately. But yeah, V7X snare top, SE8 snare bottom.
Okay.
Kick is a 91, Shure 91, and then like a trigger. I do like a hybrid thing. Toms are Beta 98 amps, and got an M201 on hi-hat, and an AT450 on ride. A bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
We have Sennheiser 614s for the ambience. Because again, they're kind of set and forget it. There's not. So it's kind of like, well, they go up there and they pick up the ambience, and
Yeah.
And that's so basically it. All the guitars and bass are all DI, so the only microphones are on the drum kit and the vocals.
Okay.
So that kind of covers the whole mic package.
How'd you get hooked up with these guys?
With ABR, we were on tour together. We were on the Warped Tour together in 2015. I was mixing another band, and then we ended up on a club tour in Europe, the following, right after that, like everyone's next tour that fall, and their longtime engineer who had been with them kind of since the beginning, kind of since they popped off of their like second record, was just like ready to retire, and so he just kind of pitched the gig to me, and I had only been doing audio for like 3 years at that point, so yeah, I pitched the gig, and then I just kind of assumed the position, and so I've spent the last 7 years kind of growing and learning with ABR, and it's been great, and it's become kind of like my baby, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so all these decisions to try and keep things efficient and quick and clean, have I've had my hands in all of it at this point. But yeah, basically they just heard me mix, and I was ready to do something different, and so it just kind of worked out.
What got you into running sound?
Boy, I started out.
Let me guess, as a musician?
Yeah, yeah. So I played the drums, and I also got into audio from like the recording side. I was in bands.
Side. Okay.
Yeah. So I was in bands, and then I was into like recording my bands and my friends' bands in high school. And my dad was into audio, and so he was like very supportive of all that. And then I went to college for music industry technology at Drexel University in Philadelphia, and while I was doing that, I was still playing in bands, and then I actually ended up dropping out of college to go on tour to play drums in a band. And then while I was having that experience, I kind of like came to this realization of like, oh, like there's audio on tour too. Like to me, it was always just like, oh, it's just the sound guy. He's just here to do the sound. It never really occurred to me like, oh, I can go on tour and do audio. And so after that situation with the band kind of ended, I had an opportunity to go go on I kind of sold myself to a friend of mine, like, hey, I've been on tour, I can do sound, like, and I had the opportunity to go out with a friend of mine, who I grew up with, who was in a small signed like metal band, basically, which kind of got me going down this whole metal track that I've been on. And and from there I just got out there and did my thing and got in front of more people and got more offers and kind of worked my way up from there. But yeah, it was kind of this serendipitous like realization that like, oh, like I like being on tour, I like to travel, I like live music, and then like, oh, like I can do audio and do that. I don't have to be in the band, and I can make a career out of that. So that was kind of like that was the moment that I realized, and then it just kind of kept going. You know, I never really made like a conscious decision like I want to be I want to do live audio for a living. It was kind of like, oh, like this seems cool, and then it just kind of kept happening.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new engineers that watch my channels, some experienced engineers too.
Sure.
I've seen a big influx of people, especially after COVID. We talked about this a little earlier.
Yeah.
Since COVID, there's this really big changing of hands or changing the mantle from a lot of people who really hung up their hats and ended it. And there's a lot of, and I think you've seen this, a big push of brand new people in the industry. And I think you're right in this sweet spot where you're at. So I guess one of my questions is, to those newcomers who are, if they're going to tour, they're going to hit this spot.
Sure.
It's going to happen. What advice would you give to them who are starting off and just looking at you and looking up to you saying, hey, I want to be there one day, or have been thrown in that spot and they're just saying, oh crap, I got to figure this out?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for people who really want to do live audio, or specifically like if you want to be a rock front of house guy, because that was always kind of my thing, that I've kind of actively decided, especially like to stay in club land as long as I have, because like I want to be a rock front of house guy, you know. And as it goes up, those gigs get harder to get, you know. But to be able to be the rock front of house guy, you just have to find your opportunity early and be willing to eat it to get out there. I mean, on that tour I mentioned before, that with my buddy that I grew up with, like, I mean, I think on the first time I went on tour with them, I got paid $200 a week, and I was the TM front of house guy, and you know, I was sleeping on the floor in the van.
But that experience was invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's just like people need to realize like it's like these like very artist interfacing like core crew roles don't just like, no one's just like handing them out. They're all very like, it's all very word of mouth. It's all very, you know, like everyone's just drawing from their personal networks. And so in order to enter in to these networks, you just have to get out there and get in front of other engineers and other crew people and other bands that are in the world, or, you know, as close to adjacent to the world that you'd like to work in, and just get in there and network and build from there, because you know, like, you're not just going to become the front of house guy for August Burns Red, you know, who's a club band, you know. It's like, you know, and up from there, it's like there needs to be a basis for it. And so to find that first opportunity, whatever it is, to just get out there and start getting in front of people and start building that network, like, that's the hardest part, but also the most important part, because it's all word of mouth. It's everybody's just vouching for, oh, I heard this guy mix, you know, it was pretty good, like, maybe, you know, it's all that kind of thing. So it's,
How much of this is running sound, and how much of this is interpersonal relationships? Because you are on the bus with the band, with the crew. I think I heard one time from somebody, and you can see in another video, that it was, I'm hired for, I get paid to be here for an hour and a half. I'm hired for the 22 and a half hours.
Sure.
Which, what can you speak into that?
Sure. No, I mean, this is a topic that comes up too when I talk to other younger engineers that are, or people looking to get into it. But yeah, I mean, it's I'd say that like being cool, you know, is honestly the most important thing.
So you can be okay at sound, but a good relationship person that'll make up for the okay at sound, or you could be a crappy sound guy. Oh no, sorry, a crappy person and really good at sound. And not get the gig.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely a balance that needs to be struck, and depending on the scale like those things can kind of trade.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, yeah, especially again, like if you're kind of getting in at the ground level, it's mostly riding around in the van, riding around in the camper, whatever it is, hanging out with the guys. I mean, we even on this tour, we have 3 supports in this tour, and they each get less than an hour in the afternoon before doors to scramble and do all the audio that they need to do, and then they have their 30 or 40 minute set, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But those are the gigs that are good because it's like, oh, like I met TJ and Miles in this tour. It's like, okay, well, I know those guys know what they're doing now, and so like it's kind of one of those things like where I'm in the position to kind of pass those gigs along, and like it's being.
So take the crappy gig.
If you think it's going to put you in front of people that you're interested in being in front of, it's absolutely worth it to take the crappy gig because it's a long play. I mean, if you want to go learn to be a system tech and go get put on an arena tour and and work the industry from that angle, like that's great. You know what I mean? Like those are jobs that need to be done and that take skill and knowledge and everything. But if you want to be a core crew member, mix engineer, it definitely pays to work your way to get in at the ground level and try and either grow with an artist or climb that way. And by being a good person, or at least by being the type of person that the people you're around want you to be. And I don't mean change who you are or anything like that. If like I've been on tours where I don't fit in and I don't feel super comfortable and I haven't gone back out with those artists. I do my thing and then I leave. But yeah, I mean it's just so crucial to be easy to work with.
What's the best advice you've gotten from one of your mentors?
Best advice I've gotten from one of my mentors? Man, that's a tough question.
You're in the spot.
Yeah, no.
There's no camera, I promise.
No, it's funny. So this is actually super early on, and this isn't a person that I would consider like an audio mentor necessarily, but more of just like an industry mentor. Not even like a long-term mentor, but it's just like a super great piece of advice that was just sort of like tossed casually in my direction. But basically, what he said was, everyone's gonna quit eventually. And he said, so if you just work at it long enough, like the next gig will come along. You just have to be around and be ready to take that gig when it comes. Because eventually, the guy that does that top level band is going to retire or pass away or whatever, God forbid, and someone else is going to move up, and then that slot's going to open, and then some other guy's going to move up into that slot, and then and that's just the cycle of the industry.
I'm sure throughout your career you've probably made a mistake, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is one of the biggest mistakes that you've learned?
Biggest mistakes.
Yeah. Or do you have a horror story or something that like, I did that and I will never do it again and I learned that the hard way?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think that anything, I don't think I've really made any mistakes in the sense of like something that I regret. Any situation that I found myself in that I didn't love was just a learning experience of like, okay, like here's a personality type I should look out for. Here's an environment like I definitely don't want to be in again.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever blown it, so there's never been like a big, show ruining. Like I've never been fired or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's all a learning experience and finding the place that you want to land as an individual and the kind of people you're comfortable being around and the kind of role that you're comfortable doing. And then when you find yourself doing something that sucks, like to you.
Sure.
Like to go, okay, well, I don't want to do that.
Sure. If people want to follow you and follow your career and keep in touch with you, where can they follow you at?
Instagram is definitely the best place.
Okay, what's your name on it?
It's at Krispy Kreme FOH.
Do you like Krispy Kremes?
It was a nickname that I was given in the 10th grade by another kid I was in a band with, because I'm Chris Pollock, so it's Chris P, and then Krispy Kreme, and so I just and then I tagged the FOH on it after a while, just for the handle. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it. But Instagram is definitely, that's where I keep up. I post videos, I post photos from the content people I'm on tour with, and a little bit of personal life stuff too. But yeah, it's definitely the best
Man,
spot.
thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. It was great to talk with you.
Yeah, dude.